Hi, this is Michael Collins Piper coming to you from the Washington, D.C. headquarters of American Free Press, the national weekly newspaper. You can check out the website at americanfreepress.net. I'm here today to talk to you about a series of articles that I've written for American Free Press that have caused some confusion and maybe a little bit of controversy. And those articles deal with the topic of an ongoing push to promote a third party in America. Now, this is not a push for a third party by American nationalists, by American truth seekers, by American white separatists, by American populists. No, this is a push for a third party coming from the highest ranks of the American media establishment. And I'm talking about the New York Times and the Washington Post. Now, I know your immediate reaction is, oh, well, neither the New York Times nor the Washington Post have ever been sympathetic to any kind of third party, no matter how far right or how matter far left or in between it may be. And you're absolutely right about that. But I'm here to tell you that if you take the time, and of course most average Americans don't have the time to do it, but if you take the time to look in the rhetorical flourishes and in the undercurrent of what is appearing in the op-ed pages of both the New York Times and the Washington Post, and which have appeared in the pages of those two powerful newspapers over the past year, maybe even more than a year, you will find that there has been a continuing push for what they're calling a centrist movement in America. And more recently, it has turned into talk of a centrist third party. Now, the people who are writing these columns have never had any reputation of being particularly conservative or moderate. They're your standard columnists for the Washington Post and the New York Times. Your conventional liberal types. But increasingly, they have been banging the drum against both, quote-unquote, the left and, quote-unquote, the right. Now, many of you out there are accustomed to thinking of the New York Times as being a liberal newspaper which only pushes a liberal viewpoint. Likewise, there are many people who take the position that the Washington Post carries out those same policies and recommendations. But folks, if you look carefully in these two newspapers, you will find that some of their leading in-house columnists have been presenting the proposition that there is a deadlock, a gridlock, even a stranglehold in and on American politics by the liberal Democrats and the conservative Republicans, and that now there is a need, that it's the time for a centrist rebellion in this country. Now, coming from the two most powerful newspapers in America, which are controlled by high-level financial interests that, honest to God, really don't have any concern about the grassroots people of this country, you must realize then that some very powerful people behind the scenes are indeed calling for some sort of change in American politics, and they're presenting this change as this potential change as a means whereby which this gridlock and this deadlock will be ended, and that hyper-partisanship will be brought to an end, that we'll have some sort of new benevolent government saving America from both the liberals and the conservatives, from the Democrats and the Republicans. Now, this kind of thinking, to adjust yourself to the possibility that the political establishment in this country, the elite establishment in this country, is trying to sabotage both the Democrats and the Republicans, is something that's a little bit too hard for a lot of people to understand. The reason why it's so hard for them to understand is because so many Americans on the left and on the right are caught up in their own political intrigues, are caught up in their own involvement with their particular parties and factions, and they have signed on, they have adapted to the liberal Democratic versus Republican conservative paradigm that has prevailed in this country for so long. As a consequence of that, they are unable to think beyond the box. They are not looking at the money trail. They are not looking at the power trail. Well, folks, I'm here to tell you today what's going on is literally a plot. Yes, it's a conspiracy. Call me a conspiracy theorist if you will, but I think the record shows it. A review of both the New York Times and the Washington Post shows they are promoting this third-party movement. One of the leaders in this effort is a liberal Democratic consultant, Doug Schoen. S-C-H-O-E-N. He wrote a book several years ago calling for the creation of a new third party. And most recently, as I have written about at AmericanFreePress.net and in the weekly newspaper, he and Pat Cadell, another liberal Democratic consultant, have called for Barack Obama to step down from running for re-election in 2012. The reason why, they say, is because this will help end gridlock, help end the deadlock in American politics, bring partisanship, and allow the centrist, the grand centrist movement, the grand center in America to flourish. Folks, I'm here to tell you what this is really all about. For better or for worse, we do have the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And each of those parties, again, for better or for worse, have their own political structures in every city, county, community, state, reaching up to the federal level in this country. Those parties have been established for a long, long time. They have leaders at all levels who are responsive in different ways, for better or for worse, to the various constituencies that back up those two major parties. You have labor, you have minorities, you have public employees, you have small business, you have farmers, the list goes on and on and on. Each of them fit in some way into the pyramid that builds up each of those major parties. Sometimes they come together on issues, sometimes they don't. Sometimes there's a very big clash. But the point is, both the Democrats and the Republicans, however bad each of them happen to be, they still nonetheless have a foundation within the broad population of this country. And now what is happening, ladies and gentlemen, is that the power elite in this country are trying to break the back of the two major political parties, to destroy their constituencies, and to set in place in this country a new political elite, a new political superstructure at the highest levels, which is totally divorced from the grassroots people of this country. Folks, it is that simple. That is precisely what is happening. They have decided that the Democratic and Republican parties are expendable, and they are now building the groundwork to tell the American people to abandon the Democrats and Republicans and to reach a new broad, bipartisan, nonpartisan, centrist consensus that will save America from those evil people on the left and those evil people on the right. Now, I have further thoughts about what's involved in this conspiracy, in this plot, in this scheme, but we'll save that for another time. But folks, you heard it here first. Think about it very carefully, and if you doubt my words on this, take a look at recent issues of American Free Press on the website at AmericanFreePress.net. Check out some of the articles I've written, and then do your own research. Don't just listen to me. Do your own research. It's right there. Forget about the old paradigm of liberal versus conservative. Think beyond the box, ladies and gentlemen. Think about the fact that there are big money forces that care nothing about Republican philosophy or Democratic philosophy. They care only about power and influence and money.